Hey everyone, welcome to My Rising Rose, where we channel dragons and goddesses while remaining grounded and ordinary in our humanity. I've been getting some questions recently about the differences between ascended and descended awakenings. And it's something that if you've seen me speaking, then you know that I talk about pretty often. Just before I get into that, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping and say that we've got Dragon Medicine 3 coming up on the 18th of September. So that's the third Dragon Medicine group that we've started. We start from the root chakra and we work our way up, working with a dragon for each chakra to help bring ourselves back into alignment with the cosmos that we truly are. And we're also going to be opening up Dragon Medicine 1 so that we're going to bring in a few new people into Dragon Medicine 1. The reason we're doing that is because Dragon Medicine 1 is moving from the lower chakras up into the middle chakras. And the way that Dragon Medicine is set up is that we do it in blocks of 3. So you work with the 3 lower chakra dragons first in the first block, and then the middle chakra dragons in the second block, and then the upper chakra dragons in the third block. So Dragon Medicine 1 is just about to move into their second block. And whenever we move between blocks like that, then the doors open again and new people can come in, though the places are pretty limited. So we'll be moving into the heart chakra dragon, the throat chakra dragon, and the third eye chakra dragon with Dragon Medicine 1. For both of those Dragon Medicine groups, there are scholarships that are available. There's a limited number of live scholarships, which is where you get a discount and you get access to the full program. That's for people on a low income. And then there's also the recording only scholarship, where you don't join the live sessions. You just get access to my members area, which is where you get the recordings. And you also get access to the WhatsApp group that we have. So every Dragon Medicine group has its own WhatsApp group. I'm finding more and more as time goes on that the community aspect is really important. But for some people, they prefer just to have the recordings, or they've got some financial constraints. So there is scholarship there for recordings only, which is the cheapest available option. So you can message me about that if that's something that you're interested in. We'll be beginning on the 18th of September for Dragon Medicine 3 in the lower chakras, and then the 19th of September for Dragon Medicine 1 in the middle chakras. So the Ascended Awakening and the Descended Awakening, what's that all about? So the Ascended Awakening is what is typically spoken about in spirituality. So often people will talk about ascension, the ascension process. So it's about rising up. It's about there being this, we're stuck in this horrible place which has got so much suffering in it, and we need to rise above that, transcend that, and reach this place of peace and clarity beyond all of that horrible suffering that we have in our bodies here on Earth. Generally, this is the approach adopted by the major religions of the world. So if you look at the way that Christians build their churches and cathedrals, they have these tall spires pointing upwards. So that is to go to the heavens, right, which are above us. You go to the heavens above. And hell is usually thought of as below. You know, people point down when they talk about hell. It's seen as this terrible, terrible place below us. And even if you just think about the way that we use language, higher generally means better, lower generally means worse. So we have this arrangement in the English language which correlates with the Christian view of ascended spirituality. And that's also true in Buddhism, generally speaking, and Hinduism. And you can go through and you can look at all of the different religions and see for yourself whether or not that kind of matches up, where they generally kind of point upwards. If you look at their buildings, generally they're kind of pointed upwards. But you can explore that for yourself and see for yourself how true that is. And then there's the descended movement. So this is more commonly connected to shamanism, to paganism, and these more indigenous, maybe, forms of spirituality which revere the earth. So the forms of spirituality I was speaking about before could be talked about as patriarchal or masculine forms of spirituality that point upwards. They also have the element of air being a very strong aspect of them. So in Buddhism, they will talk about the clear sky as a symbol of enlightenment, and like cloud analogies in the sky, and then breath meditation is very important. Breath obviously being connected to breathing and air. So there's this emphasis on the element of air, whereas the other, the more downward facing, the more descended forms of spirituality are more connected with the elements of earth and water. So for myself, just to give a little bit of context, I was atheist, so I didn't believe in any of this stuff. And then I listened to an Eckhart Tolle video, and that really propelled me very quickly into this upward direction, into peace and clarity, like the clear sky. And I was in that place for a while. Ended up having a Kundalini awakening, which kind of was similar in this upward direction. You know, if you know much about Kundalini, it starts at the base of your spine and it rises up. So that was something that I experienced. It's really changed the course of my life, both that first encounter with Eckhart Tolle and about a year later, the Kundalini awakening. But what happened in the years after that was that there was this descension process. So I had gone into some really lovely states, some quite ecstatic states, blissful states, which did have a quality of being above somehow. And what happened over time, it's like my body called that awareness that I had discovered. It's like my body started calling it in, calling it down, and my awareness in my body started becoming stronger. So I had been emotionally disconnected for a really long time, and one of the things that happened, I remember being at work actually, and I was sat at my desk. I worked at a research institute in London, psychological and psychiatric research institution. And I was sat at my desk, and I stumbled across a picture of the Hindu saint who's Ananda Mayima. And any of you know her, then you know that like there are some incredible photos of her just in states of total blissful surrender, and she's just an incredibly beautiful woman. And I remember looking at those pictures, and I felt like I was looking at myself. Like I felt like I was looking at like a mirrored image of the states that I had been experiencing inside of myself, but embodied, you know. Whereas for myself, I was like not at all embodied. That is still a work in progress. But it's like she was just fully in it. And I was sat at my desk, and I probably hadn't cried in years, certainly not while sober. And yet I was sat at my desk and I was crying, looking at these images of her, because I was just so moved by her. And it's the classic story, if you've been in spirituality very much and you've read stories of people going through the kind of the journey of awakening and how it unfolds and how it deepens and matures. In many ways, my own life followed that, because I had this awakening in my head and in my mind, which then descended and it touched my heart, and my heart started to open with all of this emotion and just love for the beauty of life, and it's all very profound and incredible. And then it got a bit grittier than that, because the descension continued. So it's like I discovered this spirit up here, and then it started to lower down, and then it's going into my gut. And I remember meeting up with a friend and being like, it's like I can feel these knots inside of myself, like these knots. And that working through that then became, and it still is, one of the primary practices that I have, just feeling the countless energetic knots that exist inside of my body, and allowing awareness to come and meet those places more and more deeply, and sometimes slowly and sometimes quickly, unwinding those. So Adyashanti has this way of talking about awakening where he says like the head, the heart and the gut, and that certainly matched up to what I was experiencing there. But something happened a little while after that, when it started descending down even more, and it descending down through my feet into the earth. So my mind and my awareness descending into the earth herself and starting to come in contact with these living flows of energy that exist inside of our earth, meeting those flows and forming a connection with them and understanding my relationship with them, and eventually deepening that to the core of the earth herself, what I refer to as the heart of Gaia, almost like the soul of the world, and connecting to that place, and slowly it dawning on me that everything that I'm coming in contact with is actually a reflection of my own self, that I am actually the heart of Gaia and the living flows of energy that move through Gaia. And deeper than that, that actually all of those things, including all of my humanity and everything I've ever been and everything I ever will be, that those are all just ripples in the eternity of my own self. I don't want to get too grandiose. And the realizations that I'm talking about there, as I see it, and it always seems to feel this way to me, and I'm sure many of you relate to this, it just feels like it's the tip of the iceberg all the time. I'll have some grand discovery, or sometimes something quite big will happen and it doesn't even feel like it's big. Like realizing that I am the heart of the earth. Actually, there's no one around me kind of, it's not like when I was studying medicine where I'd be assessed and appraised and watched all the time. So it's very easy to understand that you've made a major milestone if there are people around you telling you that that's what's happened. But a lot of my journey has been private. So there hasn't been someone around going, oh, that was a major milestone, really well done, It's been more quiet. So sometimes big things like that have happened, and then it's like, oh, that's really cool. And then back onto I feel really lonely. That kind of blend, and I'm sure many of you relate to this, like this blend of the really profound spiritual revelations combined with the pains and the ups and downs of an ordinary human life. So that's really what My Rising Rose is all about, and what I'm trying to do with this channel, to just be open about this stuff and share honestly. So talking more about this ascended and descended path. So generally the question that I get asked after I've given that explanation is, okay, which one am I? All right, because generally people will orient more towards one or the other. There are some people, lots of people who are having awakening experiences, and generally they orient more either in the upward or the downward direction. It's not quite as simple as that. Obviously, you can be a mix of both of those things. You can move between those things throughout your life. It's not all fixed. But generally speaking, people are more one or the other. Great example is Eckhart Tolle. He is most definitely an upward ascended person, really super clear in that direction. You hear him talking, he will use the clear sky as an analogy for awakening. He will, if you've read his famous books like The Power of Now, there's a part in The Power of Now where someone's asking him about practices that they can do and workshops they can go on, and his answer is, well, you can go on whatever you like. There's lots of interesting stuff there, but nothing will be better than following your breath. And that that's like the hallmark of someone who's had this kind of ascended awakening and is really clear there, because from their perspective, what they're saying there is totally true. But of course it would be, because they're speaking from the direction of the ascended air awakening, which is different to the descended awakening. A friend of mine, I hope I'm not plagiarizing anything, but he has a really lovely way of describing this, talking about the path of the Buddha. And he's talking about the Buddha, who is obviously another example of the ascended awakening, right? You see him, he's sat there, he's completely untouched by the world, he's beyond it all, he's transcended it all, he is just, emptiness. He's awakened to the emptiness of his own true nature. His story includes him being tested in the awakening process, and him always kind of rising above everything and kind of having this very kind of detached, wise perspective and moving away. And, he's like kind of untouched, and he's like, oh, he's so serene, and he's not getting caught up in everything. And so my friend describes that. And then what he says is like, okay, well, imagine if the story of the Buddha was different. Imagine if instead of rising above everything, he was actually called into everything. So every time he was faced with a trial and a pain was brought to him, instead of him kind of rising above it and moving away from it, what happened if he moved toward it and into it and through it? So that is more of the descended awakening. You are coming in contact with your pain. You are accepting it and moving into it so deeply that it becomes something completely different, right? You transcend it not by moving away from it, but by moving into it and through it. So that's how I see those two paths and their fundamental difference. Generally, the descended path is more painful. I don't want to put anyone off. But I think so anyway. I think it's more painful. Grittier, more human, dare I say, more humbling. I certainly needed it and need it. I continue to need it. I'm constantly being humbled by my pain pretty much every day. And you can hear the weariness in my voice. Yeah, sometimes it's annoying and difficult. It does always lead to something better. It does, I promise. I'm partly just saying this to myself. Right, so that's a little bit about the difference between those two. How do you know which one you are? If we had the opportunity to meet, I could probably tell you in a couple of minutes which one you are. You probably already know. If you don't think you know, you do know. You do. Here's some clues though. So the ascended people tend to like really love detached meditations, breathing meditations, like Buddhist meditations. They can be drawn to like Theravadan Buddhism and be quite intellectual. They can also be more aligned to the idea of the star seed. You can even see it in your preferences and what you find beautiful. Like I see my partner as being like this, and like she'll look up at the stars, and just have this sense of longing and wonder, and like that they are home. Whereas for me, I feel that much more from the earth. I feel that she is my home, and she is my mother, and this is where I belong, and I love being here. And well, not always, but most of the time. So there are loads of clues. On an energetic level, when you get sensitive enough and when you've opened up enough, you can literally feel it. So for me, like I feel both directions. I feel all of the directions, like in an energetic way. So what I mean by that is that there is a presence an expanded energetic field that exists in all of those directions. And I can feel all of those, but the one that I gravitate most to is the one below. And for other people, it's different to that. They'll gravitate just up. Sometimes people are so focused on the one that they naturally go towards that they haven't even considered the possibility that the other ones exist. I've had some wonderful sessions with people where they've been like super, super open up here. And then I've been like they're so open, they're way more open than I am up there. And then there was this one session in particular where I was almost had an out-of-body experience from this guy who was so open above. And I was just like, whoa, like this is unusual and challenging. And then I was asking him about below, like asking him to bring that really open awareness that he's got up there. Like, what happens when he brings it down here? What happens if he lets that go into the earth? But one of the things that happens when you're like really awake in these places is that you're transmitting energy all the time. So when I say something like that to someone, it's not just I'm making a suggestion and their mind is going there. Like, I'm already awake in the below direction. So it's like it opens a pathway. And then when I say, oh, have you thought about coming down here? There's already something open. And then he had a good awareness. So he's like, oh, that, whoa. And it was beautiful to see because he'd never thought about bringing that attention down before. And it just opened just like that. And that happens sometimes as well through the programs that I've done where someone has awakened to the below. And it's special. It's really special when that happens because that's the goddess. Like that's the divine feminine and this really earthy, deep, sensual, passionate energy. And it's a real pleasure for me. Like if you can imagine being sat where I am, where I've had these experiences and it's all been very private, and then to be talking to someone and I'm not really sharing directly about those experiences, but we're just kind of, we're going on our journey, and then one day it just kind of clicks and they start describing the experiences that I've been having, and it's like, oh, yeah, you got it. That's it. That's rewarding. So I hope I've answered the question of what above and below is. It's kind of difficult to talk about. I hope that I've transmitted enough energy that it makes sense on that level. Again, just to reiterate that, obviously I'm describing this intellectually, but I'm holding these places open while I'm talking, and the sensitive among you will be able to feel that. And so that's like the transmission. And again, going back to like the old texts, when they talk about spiritual teachers, generally what is spoken is about the non-verbal sharing of a spiritual teacher. Like famously, I think it was Francis of Assisi, correct me if I'm wrong, but my teacher, Fran, used to quote this often, and she most certainly lived this. It's this quote from Francis of Assisi, I think, and he said, "Everywhere you go, preach the gospel. If absolutely necessary, use words." And that's it. That's the good stuff. I remember first hearing that, and it sounded cool, but I didn't quite get it. So if that's where you are, that's cool. I get it now, and I'm sure I'll get it more and more as time goes on, and I'm sure you will too. So it's a pleasure to share all this information with you. I'll put a link in the comments below for the 2 Dragon Medicine groups, and feel free to email me if you're interested in those. And yeah, let's carry on these wild journeys together. A lot of stuff is happening in humanity right now, and I'm sure you can feel it. And sometimes that can feel pretty overwhelming and pretty doom and gloom, but you don't have to go through it alone. And none of us do, and none of us actually are. We are all supported by beings that are truly loving and beautiful beyond our comprehension. And we are all part of this great return of humanity to the cosmic family. And each of us are playing our part in that, whether we know it or not. So keep on going. And I look forward to sharing more with you as time goes on, and to hearing from you. I really love reading in the comments what's going on for all of you. So drop a comment in, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.